morning or good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar Stump the Expert. My name is Fabio Teresino. I'll be conducting the webinar today. It's the last webinar of this year, so thank you very much for attending the webinar today and all the other webinars hosted by InduSoft. As most of you probably know, the webinar today is quite open. There is not a predefined agenda. And you are free to ask your particular questions by typing them on the Q&A box or on the chat box available at the WebEx bar at the upper side of your monitor. So I'll do my best to answer all your questions during the webinar. If the complete answer takes more than the time we have available for the webinar, at least I'll give the main idea, the main structure for the solution, and eventually I can follow up with each one of you individually if it requires further clarification. So having said that, please feel free to write again on the WebEx bar at the top of your monitor your questions or requests, and I'll be more than happy to address it during the webinar. So we got the first one here. How can I monitor during runtime if a driver like Modbus port is open? So as you know, in the InduSoft Web Studio, we have a list of hundreds of drivers, native drivers available on the product. So one of them, for example, is the mode TCP. And I can create worksheets and addresses and so on and so forth. And when I run the product, if the driver is enabled here, InduSoft runs that particular driver. So if I come here, the multi-TCP driver is running right here. So there are three functions in InduSoft Web Studio that allows you to manipulate tasks from InduSoft Web Studio, including drivers. So one of them is a function called isTaskRunning. And you can verify if each one of the InduSoft tasks is running or not. In case of the driver, is the word driver, and the name of the driver you want to monitor, like for instance, multi-TCP. So if I use here the syntax isTaskRunning driver multi-TCP, it returns 1 if the driver is running, or 0 if the driver is not running. So if I close the driver, the function returns 0. If I run the driver, the function returns 1. By the way, I can even start the driver with those functions as well. So start task multi-TCP, which is in this, well, not multi-TCP, sorry, driver, which starts the driver, and end task driver multi-TCP. So as you see, when I run this function, start task driver toggles, it starts all the drivers configured in the project that are not running yet, and the function isTaskRunning driver multi-TCP returns 1. And when I execute this function end task toggle, it stops the driver. So it's even possible for you to create your own functions in global procedure, and you just pass as the argument the name of the driver, and the function will stop the driver, start the driver, and check if the driver is running. Obviously, if you're using a different driver, not the multi-TCP, is just to change this portion here with the name of the specific driver you want to monitor. Very well, we have another function here. A note here from Scott. Thank you. If you need, so another question here. Let's see. if you need, say, 10 serial devices to connect to InduSoft and have a 1500 tag license with 3 drivers, can we still stay with a 1500 tags license and just buy a license for the additional serial connections? Technically, it is possible to modify a license for PC to support additional drivers. We do that in very specific cases. Usually you need to understand the needs, the volume, the number of licenses, the type of opportunity, but it's much more a commercial discussion than a technical discussion. So if you have a particular project where you need a very low number of tags or a low number of tags, but a very high number of drivers, please contact InduSoft. You can send an email directly to me or to sales@indusoft.com. Explain the project, the situation, the number of licenses, and InduSoft will do the best to be flexible and provide a solution that's commercially feasible for you. Typically, there will be additional costs for the additional drivers, but not necessarily you will have to upgrade to a much higher license level with 10 million tags or something like that. So is there a way to make user logins CPU-based rather than viewer-based on a CPU running multiple secure viewers while keeping local tags independent with each other? If I understood the question, the answer is yes. When you have several secure viewers running on the same computer, as you know, you have to install a component from InduSoft called Secure Viewer in the computer. And if you go to the directory where Secure Viewer is installed, like here in InduSoft Thin Client, I guess I uninstalled it. I do not have a Thin Client here. Let me see here. Okay. In the computer where you would install the Secure Viewer, you would have this program here, viewercfg.exe. So don't go to the InduSoft folder as I'm doing here. Go to the Secure Viewer Thin Client folder if you want to use Thin Clients. And here in the Advanced box, you have the option here to force remote behavior. If you uncheck this checkbox to not force remote behavior, the user should be shared among all the stations, but the tags should remain for each viewer with local scope. So it should allow you to implement what you are looking for. Another question. Can you implement an alarm display when alarm is triggered, such as message? I believe the goal here, if I understood the question, if not, please correct me, is you would like to open a particular screen when a new alarm becomes active, right? So open a pop-up message or open an alarm screen when an alarm becomes active. Okay, the confirmation that's what you are looking for. So let's create a new application here. So let's say alarm display test. Very well. Very well. So here in tasks, I can create an alarm group and have some tags here like A, B, C, and they have here limits like 10, and here A high, B high, C high. Message here, very well. Now, in this alarm group, if I come here to advanced, there is this field called total alarms. And And you can have a tag here, like for instance, total alarms. Okay, and what you can do here is save it. And here in the scheduler, you can say everything that every time that the total alarms tag change of value, you want to set a tag. Let's say run my script. Create this new tag. This tag receives the value 1. Save yes, yes. So here in script, we're gonna check alarm screen. Whenever the tag run, my script is 1. I run this script here just once. So after I run, I reset the run my script. And I'm gonna create another tag called total alarms previous. Okay? So here, if total alarms is greater than total alarms previous, then open whatever screen you want to open. Let's say alarm. And at the end here, you make the total alarms previous equals to total alarms. So pretty much these total alarms, every time that the total alarms, number of total alarms in that group changes, you write it to another tag called total alarm previous. And every time that the total alarm changes, I compare the new total alarms with the previous one. If it is greater, it's because there is a new alarm, not because one alarm left the list. And then if there is a new alarm, I open the alarm screen. So I save it. And here in screens, I can create different screens. Let me do something quickie and dirty here. So this screen, for example, a button here to shut down, exit, and this one I have, for instance, the label here, main. Let's call this the main screen, and let's create another screen here with the alarm banner, and save this one as the alarm screen. The name doesn't matter, right? And here I'm going to create a few buttons just to trigger the alarms. So this one is going to toggle the tag A, and the label is going to be A. And here in graphics, I will show, here in color, change the type of the button. Here in color, I will change the color of this button according with the value of the tag A. Same thing for this one, but in this case, B. And here, toggle B. I believe I removed the command from this one. So, there we go. And another one for C. Toggle the color according to the tag C. Very well, save it, make the main screen as the startup screen, and let's run it. Okay, so they are all zeros. If I toggle B, you see the tag total alarms. Did I save the alarm group? Advanced. Okay. Let me show here the actual alarms. the limit is 10. I'm treating them as booleans, so let me just change the limit to 1. Save it. Very well. So try again. Toggle B, it automatically opens the alarm screen. Now in the alarm screen, let me create a button to go back to main. Here, open main, back. And obviously this alarm screen could be a pop-up as well. So now if B goes away, it does not open the screen. If C happens, it opens the alarm screen. If A happens, it opens the alarm screen. If they go away, nothing happens. So every time that a new alarm becomes a new alarm active on the list, it automatically shows the alarm screen. Very well. Another question is, how can you implement a screen rotation or a screensaver function to prevent images from being burnt on the screen if the image is displayed in the screen for prolonged times? Good questions. It used to be a much serious problem in CRTs monitors. In new LCDs, you pretty much do not have this problem, or you have a much lesser frequency of this problem. But it is, in any case, very easy to create a way to build to open a particular screen if the user does not use the monitor for a period of time. Now what you can do here is the real trick is in this function called is change. Has been a while I use this function because nowadays we do not use much of the this functionality. So the time since the user pressed the screen, I think it's in module activation. No. There is a built-in function, and I honestly forgot the name because it's a long time I don't use, that returns the number of seconds since the last time that the user used the screen. So it's not secured system, or should not. No, to me it is not. System information, gotta be system information. No input time, sorry, there you go. That's the function, no input time. So in this particular function, it returns the number of seconds since when the user interacted with the screen for the last time, either using the mouse or the touch screen or the keyboard. So what I can have here is on the screen, let's go, let's say, to the main screen. So I come here and, or even to make something generic for any screen, here in graphics script, I can have if no input time is greater than, let's say, 5 seconds, then open, let's say, screensaver, one screen called screensaver. and to avoid keep calling this screensaver more than once, can have a statement and is screen open, screensaver equals to 0, then I open the screensaver. This built-in function is screen open returns 1 if the screen is open and 0 if that particular screen is not open. So if no input time is greater than 5 and the screensaver is not open, then I open the screensaver. It's in the graphics script, so it's executed on each thin client. I can create a screen here, let's say with the background being black. And I can have a text here. Let's use a rectangle and use here the caption screensaver with, let's say, a green text, whatever it is. Make it bigger. Very good. If you want it to be kind of random, to move around the screen, you can say here the horizontal position can be the range screen times 1000 plus second minus second. This plus second minus second is because each expression during the runtime will be executed only when tag in that field changes of value. So plus second minus second doesn't change the result of the expression, but forces InduSoft to execute this expression every second. So this way, this object will be randomly moving the screen. And to go back to the previous screen, you can do different ways, but one way would be if let's do it this way. If the screensaver is not open, then if the no input time is greater than 5, then you open it. Otherwise, if the user moves the screen, you open main, for example. And if, right? So if the screen open is not open, then you check no input time. And if it is open, you go to the main. Otherwise, you don't go back to the main. If you want to make even simpler here, let's just go back to my previous script, because this one I'll have to protect against the main as well. I'll do something different. Okay. Only on this screen, and when this screen is open, here on the on open, I'll have if no input time is lower than 5, then open main. It's better this way. So only if this screen is open and the user clicks on the screen, we go back to main. So screensaver is open. And screensaver, same name. Very well, so I'm here on the runtime. If I stop moving the mouse long enough, it opens the screensaver and keeps moving this particular object on the screen. And I can change the limit so it moves around the whole monitor. But if I click on the screen, it goes back to the main screen. And if I don't move anything for 5 seconds, goes back to the screensaver. If I click here, then goes back to the screen. As long as I'm moving the mouse, I'm clicking around, I'm using the keyboard, nothing happens. If I stop everything for 5 seconds, boom, it goes back to the screensaver, right? So obviously I used 5 seconds to make sure you don't have to wait too much here, but in a real application, you would change this limit from 5 seconds to something like maybe 5 minutes, something like that. 5 times 6 seconds. Okay? Another question is, can we have an object that displays just alarm messages? Well, the alarm control is the object that displays only alarm messages. It does not display, if you select here alarm online, it shows only alarm online alarm messages. If you select alarm history, it shows only alarm histories. If you messages, if you select events, it shows only events, and if you select history plus events, it shows those two. So this is an object that displays only alarm messages. If you're asking about another object that shows just maybe the last alarm available, there is an internal tag in InduSoft called alarm, and this object displays the message of the last alarm active in the system. So pretty much the alarm on the top of the list, right here, A, for example. So you can have, for instance, a rectangle and display on this rectangle the value of the system tag alarm. So save it. Oh, I am in the alarm screen. Let's go to the main screen. Paste here. Save it. Very well. So as you see there, it shows always the message from the top of the alarm control. I'm not sure what you're looking for an object that displays only the alarm messages, but the alarm control is the one designed for that, and if you want to display in a different control only the most recent alarm message, you can use the alarm system tag. How does one implement a rising edge or falling edge trigger? Very good question. And here under tasks, you have scheduler, and the scheduler module is the best module to trigger actions based on events. And one of the events is tag changing of value. So let's say that every time that a sensor tag changes of value, I want to increment a counter. I want to make the counter equals to counter plus 1. So this way, every time the sensor changes, InduSoft executes this expression, counter plus 1, and writes the result of the expression to this tag, counter. So in other words, every time that the sensor changes, we increment counter. Now, the way it is right now, if sensor goes from 1 to 0, it increments the counter, or from 0 to 1, it increments counter as well. If you want to do only, for instance, on the raising edge, you can disable this line when sensor goes to 0. So here on the disable field, you disable this whole line when sensor goes to 0, so it's going to increment counter only when it goes from 0 to 1, assuming that sensor is a Boolean tag. So if I go back here to the screen and I create a button, let's say this one, I don't need color, to toggle sensor. So let's change the label to sensor. And I use here a rectangle to show the value of the tag counter. And here on the button, I'm going to show the value of the tag sensor as well. So we see if when it goes from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. So sensor is 0. Sensor goes to 1. Not sure if I saved the scheduler. Yeah. So there you go. Every time that sensor goes from 0 to 1, it increments counter. When sensor goes back to 0, it does not do anything with counter. If sensor goes back to 1, increments counter, back to 0, nothing to counter. So every time that this tag goes from 0 to 1, you execute an expression. If you want to do this on the falling edge of the tag, just change the disable to sensor equals to 1. If you want to do something more than just writing a value to a tag, you can do something similar to what I did here. Just set a tag and use this tag in the execution from a script where you can do many actions based on the rising edge of a tag. Okay? Oh, a clarification about the question, can we have an object that displays just alarm messages, is alarm messages that scroll from recent onwards. So if understood, the idea was to have like alarm control like this one, but having the messages pretty much scrolling through the alarm control and display different messages. It is possible to do that. I can create a sample application and send to you to show pretty much how to do that through scripts. One way to do that would be to have a tag here in the down field. So those navigation triggers, they allow you to trigger by tags commands like row up, row down, page up, page down, home, and end. And by having a tag, for instance, in the down, if you know from the alarm group how many alarms are active, so how many alarms are in the alarm control, you can keep toggling the tag down. You can create an alarm control where you can see only one row, and keep toggling the alarm down to show the next message, the next message, the next message, the next message, until you toggled down too many times that you are at the bottom of the queue. And when it happens, you trigger home to go back to the first message, and then down and down and down again. That's pretty much the way. I'm not going to do the scripts because there are many questions here. But if you need more details about that, feel free to send me an email, and I can build a simple sample application and send to you. Bottom line, it's possible to do, and that's the main way to do that. Okay, there are several other questions here. So, how can InduSoft support redundant PLC without duplicate tags? How do you swap IP address on fly and restore primary PLC and secondary PLC? Very good question again. Typically, when you have redundant PLCs, you have the same addresses in both PLCs. The only thing that changes is the IP address of the PLC. Or the IP ID, if it is RS485, whatever it is. So it is what in InduSoft we call the station for the PLC. So you can have a driver sheet, a main driver sheet or a standard driver sheet, and have your tags here configured in the worksheet and to different addresses, let's say holding register 1, 2, 3, very well. And here in the station, you can write the IP address of the PLC. The nice thing about the driver sheets in InduSoft is that you can configure a tag in the station field for the driver between curly braces, like for instance, PLC IP. And this tag can be string, for example. So I have here PLC IP. So during the runtime, the driver sheet will connect to the PLC with the IP address defined in this tag. So in a script, let's call here PLC redundancy. I can check, let's say that I have here the read status, right? Very well. So I can say here, if the read status is different from 0, so if I have a communication error, then and if. Then I swap the IP address. So let's say that I have two IP addresses, IP1, IP2. IP1 is equal to 192.168.11.502.1, for example. This is the actually station for the PLC. The other one is something like this, the IP2, right? So you can check if the PLC IP is equal to IP1, then the PLC IP should be the swap to the IP2. Otherwise, the PLC IP is the IP1. And here, for protection, you can, for the first scan, you can say if PLC IP is equal to nothing, then PLC IP is equal to IP1, to have one to start with. So pretty much this will do the trick. Instead of running the script all the time, you can time it in the scheduler and execute it once every minute, once every 5 seconds, for example. So after you swap, you give some time for the driver to connect and update the read status. If you want to make sure that it happens only if the read status is in bad condition for a period of time, you can make this if a little bit more sophisticated, but pretty much that's the way. For instance, if you want to make sure that it swaps only if the read status is bad, different from 0, for more than 5 continuous seconds. So you can use here the write status timestamp, which is the last time that the read status timestamp, which is the last time that this tag changed of value. If you use this function stGetElement with .1, you retrieve the timestamp. You remove from the timestamp the milliseconds, because if you see here the timestamp format, it has the date and time, but in the time there is dot in the milliseconds. And this function strGetElement, using dot as the delimiter and returning the first element, returns the timestamp without the milliseconds, which is the format supported by the VB-script datetime functions. So you can check here if the time difference in seconds between the timestamp and now is greater than 5 seconds, for example, then you swap PLCs. So now with this statement, if the read status is not good, and it's not good for 5 continuous seconds, so it's not just one group that has the invalid address or something like that, then you swap to the other PLC. And this is a generic script. If you want to swap through to different PLCs, just change the IP address of the PLCs, and the driver worksheet is the same. You do not have to change the driver worksheet or create additional driver worksheets for different PLCs. Another question here. Are there any graphic functions to create ribbon on a screen? There is not a built-in ribbon like this traditional ribbon. Obviously, you can create something similar to the ribbon, building rounded rectangles and icons with linked pictures, apply commands to them, change the color when the mouse moves on the object, or you can use an external ActiveX control or .NET control, but there is not a native ribbon interface for the application. But through any one of the methods I just described, you could create something like that. Just one quick tip. Usually when customers try to build something like that, a question is how to change the color of the object if the user moves the mouse on the object. So let's say I have a filling color here of a light blue. And when the mouse is on the object, I want to change the color. So here, in any object, you have this hint field where you can write any label, like let's say my ribbon, right? And here, when you move the mouse on the object during the runtime, the value of this hint is written to a system tag called hint. So here in tag expression, you can say if hint is equal to my ribbon, then the expression returns 1, and I want to show it as orange, for example. Let's reset like this. And here, let's change this one for other ribbon. And here the hint is equal to other ribbon. Save it. So during the runtime, if I just move the mouse on those objects, it changes the color even if I do not click on the object. Other question, could you please make a database with Access something simple? Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly you want to do with Access, but to do really quick something simple, I can go to Access and create a new database. Let's create an MDB, since many computers out there many systems out there still use the MDB format. So I'm going to create here webinar.mdb under my documents. Okay, create. And now I'm going to design a new table. Let's call table 1. In this table, I'm going to have columns like C1 and C2. Doesn't have to be primary key. Where C1 is a text, C2 is a number. Save, close. And if I come here, I have data like ABC, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have a simple table here in Access. Now, if I want to link this Access database to InduSoft, all I have to do is go to Project, Options, Default Database, select the provider JET, which is the provider for MDB files. If you want to use the new format, ACCDB, you can use the Microsoft Office 12 or 15 providers, but for MDB, you use the Microsoft JET. Here you browse for that particular database. So I think it's this webinar.mdb. Test the connection succeeded is always a good sign. And now that you have the link with the database, you can use objects like, for instance, the grid control. And in this grid control, let me change here the font size and color. So if I come here to fonts, apply black, very well. Now the data source can be database. Here in data source settings, I can browse the column table 1. And here in columns, I can decide to display the column 1 and column 2, where column 2 is numeric. Very good. Save it. I will close all those objects, run the application. InduSoft connects to the MDB file, which shows the data on the screen. There is obviously much more we can do with databases, MDB file, or any other database, but this is a simple example as requested in the question. Another question, can you explain how to create a button with hover animation? So again, using the hint trick that I used on the rectangle, if you do the same thing on a button or any other object, then you can trigger the execution of anything when hint matches whatever is the string for that particular object. And you can use, for instance, the graphics script to trigger something when the hint matches the string. But by the way, pretty soon we are going to add to the native command animation the on-hover dynamic. So the same way you have here events like on down, on up, blah, 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 you're going to have on hover as well. But in the meantime, you can use the hint and use, for instance, the graphics script when the system tag hint is equal to whatever string you used here, you execute what you want to execute. Another question is, show the best way to implement a timer. There are many different ways, and quite honestly, I got different feedback from what people perceive as the best way, but I will show at least a couple of ways here. Let's say that every time that one tag changes, you want to wait a time and then change the other tag. So let's say we have a tag X and Y. A few seconds after X change, you want to change Y to 1. If X goes to 1, you change Y to 1. So you can say here, again, using the timestamp. So if I use the syntax X timestamp, it returns the timestamp with milliseconds. If you use the function getElement with dot as the delimiter, the first one, this whole syntax returns the timestamp of the tag X. In other words, the last time, date and time when the tag X changed of value, but without the milliseconds. So you can say if the last time that the tag X changed, so let's say date difference between the last time when the tag X changed and now is greater than, let's say, 3 seconds, right? If we are making the comparison with seconds. So if the time is greater than 10 seconds, then you're going to make X equal, Y equals to X. So whenever X changes, if it changes 3 seconds after it changes, we write the value of X to Y. So execution 1, description running always, save, script 3, very well. So I have X here, I have Y, so we change X to 1. And 3 seconds later, Y goes to 1. I change X to 0. And 3 seconds later, Y goes to 0. This is one way. It's very simple to do, just one line. If you want to encapsulate it in a function like my trigger, whatever it is, my timer, you can do that as well. This would be one way of doing that. Other way of doing that is with the scheduler, but in this case, you would need another tag. So let's say we have other 2 tags, so W and Z, for example. So you can say here, change. So when W changes, you have here, let's say, a tag, in this case called timer, but could be any name. So timer is timer plus 1. And every time that the timer changes, you check, you write to Z the value of W, only if timer is greater than or equal to a limit, let's say 3. And every time that the timer changes, timer receives 0 if timer is greater than 3. So those 3 rows make the trick. When when W, different. Clock, here has to be clock. I keep incrementing timer while W is different from Z. So if W is equal to Z, nothing happens, everything's cool. If W changes, then every second, times keep incrementing. When timer reaches a limit, then the value of W goes to Z, and when this limit is reached, I reset timer again. So 3 lines, you don't have to write any scripts. I particularly find this way simpler, but either way is possible. Another question is, what ways can I use multiple monitors in an application? Many different ways, and it's a more, from the demonstration point of view for a webinar, is not very simple because I have just one monitor here. The simplest way, in my opinion, is to install InduSoft Web Studio in the computer, design the application for one monitor, install Secure Viewer on the same monitor, the InduSoft Secure Viewer on the same monitor, and when you start the application, you start InduSoft Web Studio in one monitor and the Secure Viewer on the second monitor. So both viewers are independent from each other. They will be pointing to the same application, but you can navigate through the screens independently using each one of the secure viewers. And this is a good opportunity even for existing applications, because the beauty of the solution is that you do not have to change the application at all to make it work. You can simply install Secure Viewer in the computer, run the secureviewer.exe on the second monitor, and it launches a complete independent instance of the graphical interface. And now the operator has 2 monitors with the same application, and they can navigate through the screens in each one of the monitors independently. Just a side note, if you want to do something more sophisticated and from the central application, launch secure viewers on additional monitors, in the graphics script on the onStart, you can use the function setViewerPose to define the position of the viewer. So you can define the upper left coordinate for the viewer and the width and height of each one of the viewers. So you could design an application where you keep launching secure viewers if you have 3, 4, 5, 10 monitors, and each one of them is displayed in a different monitor. But the most typical use is pretty much 2 monitors. The easiest way to do is run the viewer on the first monitor, and the secure viewer just launch it from the second monitor. How do you open an Excel sheet in an InduSoft screen? Is there any ActiveX control? There are ActiveX controls if you just want to display the content of an Excel spreadsheet in InduSoft. You can use the standard grid control to do that. Just make a link to Excel using the same JET provider. The trick there is that here in the connection, so if I go back to the connection, you would, instead of selecting an MDB file, have to select the Excel file. And here in extended properties, you have to write Excel 8.0 if you want to use a XLS file. By the way, those connection strings, those tricks for each connection string is here on the help. So if you go to Content, Database Interface, and for each one of the databases like Microsoft Excel, it shows you that you have to go there to the properties. And in this particular case is for the new Excel XLSX format, so it's 12.0. But for the old Excel format is just Excel 8.0. And using the grid control, you can display information from Excel. If you just want to launch Excel on the screen, you can use the simple hyperlink. So let's say here hyperlink. Let's create here in Excel really quick an example here. This is a test. There is a typo, but that's fine. And here in test.xlsx, save it, close it, and here in hyperlink, just define this path. And you can use tags here in this URL to change this path dynamically. but if I save it and click here during the runtime, it automatically launches Excel and shows the particular file you selected. If you want to display the information within the screen, you can use third-party ActiveX controls, but especially if it is a table, a symbol table, and you do not worry about formatting, you can use the grid control with the data source database, and in the connection string, just configure it to link to Excel instead of MDB file, as in this example. Let's see, I'm importing about 50,000 tags from PLCs into my project, but the tag sheet will only show about 32,000 tags. How can I view all of my tags? This is not a very common issue because typically projects with many tags are well structured. But here in the data, InduSoft supports provides licenses for up to 10 million tags. And here in the driver worksheet for management purposes, you can have up to 32,000 lines. So a way to have 10 million tags within the 32,000 lines is to structure your tags database, which means create classes and arrays. So for instance, if I create one class here, CPID, and I have the members KP, KI, KD, SP, PV, MV, whatever it is. So 6 members here. This is just a class called CPID. Then if I create here a tag PID from the position 0 to 9, so 10 PID instances from the class PID, in this line I just created 60 tags. So by structuring your tags database, you can have up to 10 million tags in much less than 32,000 rows. Another question, is it possible to set that user 1, his start page is page 1, user 2, the start page is page 2, so user-dependent start page, this is all over web access or secure viewer, not local? Very good question. The answer is yes. So here in the graphics script, whatever you configure in graphics script is executed on each thin client individually. And the onStart sub is executed once when the secure viewer or the web thin client is started on each one of the thin clients. So here you can have something like select case and use the local tag username, right? And select, and you say case John is logged. Then you open like you wrote page 1. Case Bob. Open page 2. Case Mike. Open page 3. And it's always good to have a case else. Open, let's say, home, whatever it is. So every time that the viewer starts on each one of the thin clients, based on the value of the username, you open each one of those different screens. Clear? Another question, is it possible to find out in the script if the script is running on a thin client or on the server? Excellent question. The answer is yes. And the trick to do that is that any tag in InduSoft has a property called scope, which can be server or local. Server tags share the same values on all thin clients. Local tags have independent values on the server and on the thin clients. So if I create a tag here, for instance, called isServer, and change the scope to local, this tag isServer can have different values on the server and on each one of the thin clients. Here in tasks, in the startup script, I can set isServer to 1. and all the script tasks run only on the server. So when I run the application on the server, the tag isServer receives the value 1. The startup script does not run on the thin clients, and since isServer is a local tag, by default on the thin clients, the isServer tag will have the value 0. And there you go. In any scripts now, you can check the value of the tag isServer. If it is 0, it means you're running on a thin client. If it is 1, it means you are running on the server. Okay. Let's see another question here. We did this one, Rising Edge. Question, where can we download the sample application that was displayed at the show with the Bake-Off IPC? It has the multi-touch with the inertia, soccer ball, the goal posts in the project, and fly-out menus. Feel free to send an email to me. My email address I write here is fabio.souza@indusoft.com. So you can send a mail to me. I'll be glad to send that particular demo application to you. But even on the standard demo from InduSoft Web Studio, you have pretty much the same kind of functionality. So the standard demo that is installed along with InduSoft Web Studio, if you go here to Features and you go to Multi-Touch, you have here, for instance, in the screen gestures, you have this banner with inertia that you can use to bring the banner using here the touch screen up and down. In this case, it's an alarm banner, but could be a flying menu, something like that. And the way we do that, and by the way, this demo shows all the capabilities of touch screen, not only this one. So inertia to throw objects around, to rotate objects, change the size of the objects, support more than one touch at the same time, rotate, and so on and so forth. So here in the standard demo, if you go to screens, and all the touch screens are the ones that demonstrate the touch features. In this one, touch overview is the one where I show this banner. Pretty much, this is an object with the visibility position animation, and I use a tag here to control the vertical position of the object, and I enable inertia in gestures. So during the runtime, as I click on this object, I can move it up and down, and I define a way here that when I move the object down, it goes beyond the borders of the screen, and it looks like I'm hiding this particular menu. In this case, is an alarm banner, but could be a menu as in the demo that you saw on the show. But if you want a copy of that particular demo, I can send to you as well. But the standard PC demo available to anybody that installs InduSoft Web Studio 7.1, 7.Spec 1 or newer will provide this functionality as well. Just one note here, the set viewer pose works only with positive values. That's true, but that's not a limitation at all. It's just a matter to use the leftmost monitor as the reference and position the screens on the monitors to the right. And obviously the position left and right is configurable through the control panel based on the orders of the monitors that you define in the control panel. How can I show all the currently logged in users on application screen? I assume you are trying to show all of them from the thin clients. It's possible to do that again through scripts. So we have to use again local tags, server tags, and the graphics script. So every time that a thin client logs a user, we write to you create a server tag, which is an array tag for the number of thin clients you have. So if you have like 20 thin clients, you create a string array with 20 positions. Whenever a thin, and it must be a server tag. whenever a thin client logs in, you look at this array, whatever array position is empty, and that thin client writes to the empty array position the name of the user logged on that station, and sets a local tag that I usually call local ID with the array position for that particular thin client. And from that time on, you keep writing to that array position the name of the user on that particular thin client. And if you close the thin client, you reset that value to make sure that the position is available to other thin clients. I can again create a more sophisticated example and send to you. Feel free to send an email to me if you want that, but that's the strategy to do something like that. And obviously, to know the name of the user on the local station, you can simply use the system tag called username. Another question, how does one select single cell values from Excel spreadsheet? It really depends. If it is in a single tabular format, you can use the DB functions, the InduSoft DB functions, to select a value based on a criteria and grab a value from a particular cell following a criteria. If you want to get the value from one particular cell, regardless of the values on the cell, if you want, like, I want the cell E5, for example, you can use VB script. And in VB script, you can create an object in VB script using, if I'm not mistaken, the Excel application. So function test in function, let's say my Excel test. And here you can create an object Excel, and you can set this object Excel to create object. And here Excel, I think it's application.excel. And then you can use this object Excel in your script to look for particular cells on the Excel spreadsheet. I'm not going to write the whole script here for sake of time as well, but just to show you, if you Google for VB script, application Excel, there are many examples on the web. Oh, by the way, it's Excel application, not application Excel. Excel application. So if I can close this ad, and this is one example. There are thousands there. So this is the gist of it. You create this object, you point to a particular workbook, and then you use object Excel.cells, and this is the row number. This is the column number, dot value, and then you either write a value to a particular Excel row, cell, or you read value from the row using this syntax right here. So using VB script, you can link to an Excel spreadsheet, get the values, and obviously to do that, you need to have the Excel license in the computer. Let me see, another question here. Oh no, that's the one I had answered before. Just two more questions. No, how do I quickly build a display for various mobile platforms? The solution for various mobile platforms running Windows XP, Windows CE, Windows iOS, Android, any browser that supports HTML5 is the SMA solution. All you need to do is install InduSoft Web Studio in your computer, create the screens just like standalone screens, go to Publish, save all as HTML. Then run the application and install and enable the web server, the IIS from Windows. Then open your browser, does not have to be Internet Explorer, and you can type the IP address of the computer running InduSoft /MA. It's going to ask for the username and password. And in this, and there are two ways to access the screens. You can go through the standard menu screen, and then select a particular screen, and go to that particular screen. And this screen here works on iPads, Androids, Windows devices, any browser that supports HTML5, Internet Explorer 10, Safari, Chrome, any browser that pretty much supports the features we use from the standard HTML5 technology. And to make the screen available in that menu, you just have to come here to Thin Clients, Mobile Access, and create your areas there in a hierarchical way. And for each one of the areas, come here to the list of screens and select the screens you want to make available on the menu. And in Service Pack 3 that we're releasing in Q1 of next year, so pretty soon, you will be able to type here the IP address /ma index.htm, and then use the syntax $, screen equal, and the name of the screen, like for instance, animations. And then you type the username and password, and it goes directly to the screen that you specified there. You don't have to go through the menu. You don't have to do this configuration. You can go to one startup screen the same way you do on the Thin Clients. The current version of the SMA Thin Client supports pretty much all the shapes and animations for the screens. In Service Pack 3, expect to be available on Q1 of next year. It will support scripts as well. And the tags scope, you can have local tags and server tags. And the goal for next year, eventually with version 8, is to support all the remaining features and capabilities of the graphical interface, except for ActiveX controls and .NET controls, which are proprietary technologies from Microsoft. And what is really nice and unique about this solution is that it's not a remote desktop connection to the server as most, if not all, major competitors are doing. It is a truly native HTML5 solution that runs on the Thin Client and provides a much greater performance, scalability, and user experience than the remote desktop solution that we support off the box anyway, but we are making this large R&D investment to provide a native solution for HTML5, so you do not have to keep and maintain a remote desktop connection to the server. One question is if the mobile access supports screen groups. Not yet. We'll try to do that to support this for Service Pack 3, but most definitely after Service Pack 3 in version 8, it will be supported. Very well. I think at this point I addressed let me see one more. Modbus. Besides installing mobile access in InduSoft Web Studio and installing IIS on the server, what do you need to configure in the IIS on Windows 7 or Windows 8 to support mobile access? You have to make sure that ASPX is enabled in your computer in IIS. If not, then we can investigate some security settings from IIS, but typically, if you just install IIS and make sure you enable ASPX on IIS or ASP.NET, the mobile access should work off the box. Very well. So thank you for the comments there. I hope it has been informative to everybody. Again, if you have further questions, feel free to contact us, our technical support, or the info@indusoft.com. I gave here my personal email address as well, fabio.souza@indusoft.com. And I would like to thank everybody and each one of you for attending the webinar today. Thank you so much for your questions. I hope it was worth your time, and I hope to see you again next year. Thanks for using InduSoft's products and services, and have a great day or a great evening wherever you are. Thank you, everybody.